another episode from his Ancient Light series that can be found on YouTube. Let's give a round of applause for Professor of History from William Woods University, Stephen Dotson.
Ancient Light.
All right. Thank you, Spofest audience and my podcast listeners at home through time and space. What you just heard was the Ancient Light theme song. You can find Ancient Light on YouTube. This will be the 12th episode of Ancient Light. Religious Roots, the Myth of Whenever I say the word Tartarus, which is a Greek word which is basically the lowest level of hell. We could probably identify that because of the heat today. But whenever I say the word Tartarus, this is a chance for audience participation. So whenever I say Tartarus, remember it's a cruel area of hell, so feel free to scream out, either in pain or as a demonic voice. So whenever I say Tartarus, you'll hear a tone, and you'll hear Jim. Had to get the spit out. And Jim will give his infamous predatorial bird sound. Do that again, Jim. Pretty good. He likes to do that when I'm talking to him on Skype. I have headphones on. He just, out of the blue, he'll go right into a harpy eagle. The myth of Where did Christianity get the idea of heaven and hell? People come to me and they say, Steve, Dotson, Christianity comes from Judaism. They got it from the Jews. While I always find their overconfidence filled with sparkling salience, I must deliver a troubling message to many Christians. Judaism does not contain the notion that man can be damned into hell or be given the gift of a heavenly afterlife. While Jesus or someone might have belonged to a sect who appropriated the idea from Persian, Greek, or Roman mystery traditions, it is not a part of the Old Testament. The philosopher Plato is often cited as a source for the appearance of such an afterlife in Christianity. So, of course, this is a very curious idea. And so I'll probably make another episode about various pre-Christian mystery traditions in Greece and Rome, which resemble Christianity, but now I just want to address Plato's writings on the afterlife, which differ, and in some places at least, expand on earlier epic ideas about the afterlife, like in Homer and Hesiod. Jim, am I too close to the mic? It's kind of ringing a little bit. Jim, the mic is ringing a little bit. Should we turn it down a little bit? You hear that? Check one. Cool. Now, the myth of comes from Plato's Republic. It's a very fascinating ancient book on basically social engineering. He wants to design the perfect society. So the myth of is included at the end as almost a moral lesson. Plato says that this man named was Greek. Some identify the tradition as something more Eastern. Some even take a reference by Plato to mean that was Armenian. Perhaps Plato received the tale in the Greek version he placed in the Republic. Maybe Plato himself had known the Eastern narrative and made it Greek. Plato says that was from Pamphylia. Look at Pamphylia on a map. It's a coastal region greatly accessible by Greeks, but Pamphylia is well into Anatolia, modern-day Turkey. Pamphylia is nearer to the legendary homeland of the Amazons rather than the Greek cities of Athens, Corinth, and Sparta. Even the name Pamphylia in the Greek can be translated as meaning all types. Here's the story of 400 years before Christ, a man died during a war. His body was found in the battlefield, but he came alive 10 days later, just as he was about to be burned on his funeral pyre. He had seen the afterlife. He saw people descending into hell and ascending to heaven in graphic detail. When arrived at the judges who decided one's fate, they told to take a good look around. He is to go back to the living to be the messenger. The Greek word for messenger, anyone know? Greek word for messenger? Angelos. That's where we get the name for angel. The messenger is to reveal the truth of the afterlife to mankind. Here's what I really like. This is a rabbit hole of speculative bliss. Now, I'm a historian, and sometimes on my Ancient Light show, I bring up almost some crazy theories and almost conspiracies to keep it entertaining. I don't often cast 100% belief at anything historical, as any good historian should do. The rabbit hole of speculative bliss. Jesus in the Bible has a foster father, the husband of Mary, Joseph, right? Now, after hearing about the afterlife according to take a look at Luke 3:28. The name appears. In this passage is a list of male ancestors to Joseph. Some early Christians read this passage and made the connection to Plato's messenger, Thus, some early Christians believed that Joseph was a descendant of Remember, Plato seems to indicate that may have been Armenian. It is interesting to speculate that Jesus and his cousin John the Baptist were thought to be part of a family tradition, mixing the afterlife message with local Jewish religion. Christianity, when deconstructed, appears to be something like a mixture of Greek and Persian afterlife with Judaic messianic ideas. In this mashup, Jesus is the Messiah and the Angelos, the messenger, all in one. The Jews even today continue to wait for a Messiah who it is said will bring peace. Jesus did not bring the peace Jews were expecting. Instead, Christianity took on additions to its beliefs, which blended mystery traditions of the time with Judaic belief, as I've said. One does not expect peace while living in Christianity so much as it is provided in the afterlife, which differs greatly from the Judaic messianic text. So let us compare afterlife with the New Testament afterlife. To the myth, Tartarus scary place, is the place of torment where the greatest sinners are sent forever. But this place is not the norm, at least not at first. From what saw, when one passes away, the soul is judged, but it is not a final judgment. After judgment, the soul spends 1,000 years in a purely good place or down into a hellish place, depending on the verdict. After the 1,000 years, the conditioned soul then assembles in a great field, all of them together, the sinners and the do-gooders. And they congregate together. So shortly thereafter, the souls would look down upon the earth, look around at the moms and the dads and the cities, and they'll choose new circumstances to be born into. Very much unlike Christianity, we actually, in the myth of have reincarnation with this. Then they drank from the river of forgetfulness, and this is an essential key. They need to forget everything they've experienced once they reincarnate, and then they are born into a new womb. The thing about story is that even a good person, after spending 1,000 years in heaven, can reincarnate into a tyrant and end up in Tartarus. Well, that seems odd. Come to find out, people who spend 1,000 years in heavenly bliss become naive and make uninformed choices, according to Plato. They might decide to reincarnate and become a tyrant or a history professor, which would make them end up suffering forever in Tartarus. It only gets better and better. A good person, though inexperienced and unthoughtful, does not cut it. Even Kant would agree with this idea. The German philosopher and Christian Immanuel Kant criticizes the person who does good things merely out of habit or because it is expected. Plato warns mankind to accept responsibility for the evil in his or her life and to not blame it on fate or the gods, which the ancient Greeks often seemed to do. Plato was going beyond conventional thought at the time. So the myth of is a warning to maintain balance in life, much like the idea of the Mahayana, or middle way, of Buddhism. In conclusion, I am able to extract 3 rules from Plato's telling of the myth. These rules will allow you to find balance in life, but more importantly, to help you avoid eternity in Tartarus. The humidity really affects the reeds on this. It's really hard for me to get a note. 3 rules from Plato's telling of the myth. Number 1, avoid the excesses of life. They lead to folly. This is the simplest form of moderation. Number 2, avoid the one-sidedness of assigning absolute qualities to things and people. Life is an inseparable mixture of what we consider good and evil. Number 3, avoid the ignorance of underexposure. Those who go through life existing in a comfortable infantile bubble are not developing the skills for the soul to find balance on its journey. This has been the myth of Thank you for tuning in.